So Completionist recently has been called out for allegedly holding on to funds and not donating them whenever he received them. And he has now come out with a response, and we're going to look at the response, what he said. I've covered this whole topic. I think I owe it to this guy to hear his side of it. Here we go.
Over the past few weeks, allegations have been made against me, my family, and our charitable organization, the Open Hand Foundation, asserting charity fraud and more. I'm here today to provide clarity and transparency to set the record straight. I want to make...
Well, it is fraud because you said you were going to donate the money and then you didn't do it. Like, I mean, it's really like, what are we doing here? I get like if it takes some time to do it. Like there's like a reason why it takes longer. That's fine. But 10 years, man, what are we talking about? Like, it's a question. Like, you didn't do it. And we know he didn't do it because the website just recently made a post and said that they donated the money. Oh,
Get 100% clear. At no point in the Foundation's history was there any criminal or financial fraud. None. I also want to touch on why...
No criminal or financial fraud. Now, this is a question that a lawyer really because he's probably referring to legally, right? But in my opinion, I'm pretty sure that if you take money from people and then you don't donate the money, like 10 years, how is this not fraud? It's not time to decide, yeah, this is completely bad faith. Like, let's say, best case scenario, you're not legally liable for fraud. All right, fine. You know, the law is the law. The rules are the rules. But I still think, you know, if I donated money, I'd think I got defrauded.
I have been quiet for these last few weeks. A lot of folks have been saying that if I didn't do anything wrong, that I should have said something sooner, or that
you should have.
My conversation with the accusers was considered my full side of the story. But when there is allegation after allegation being made, it takes a long time to gather the evidence and facts to refute claims.
No, it doesn't. You can just make a tweet and you can say, no, this isn't true. I'm making a full response video. Please be patient. And you could have said that the day it happened. Like, I've dealt with big dramas, right? Everybody knows I've dealt with this. There is no reason that you can't say, I'm aware of the allegations and I am preparing a response. This is, by the way, what a lawyer or a PR company, because I've talked to both of them, this is what they would tell you to do. Not true.
This will be my only video response on this matter. I can confirm that as of Wednesday, November 29th, 2023, the Open Hand Foundation has donated $600,000 to the Association for Frontotemporal Degeneration.
And this is a great thing. I commend him for doing this. This is good. This is not a bad thing at all. I'm very glad that he did it. However, if the videos weren't made, what do you think the odds are that that company or charity would have received that money?
However,
it
did take too long to get to this moment, and for that, I am sorry. The money is now in good hands to make a lasting impact.
Yeah, and good for him apologizing for that. He's totally right. It's totally true. I think his credibility is totally fucking destroyed in terms of being a charity. I think he should raise money for other charities, but it should go directly to those other charities. Anytime that money is in this dude's hands, I think is probably a problem.
For more information on the donation, there will be a link down below that you can check out.
And we looked at that.
Now, to further provide context on the Open Hand Foundation, my mother got sick when I was young. She was diagnosed with frontotemporal degeneration, a form of dementia that far too often goes undiagnosed or misdiagnosed. I was 10 years old when signs of her dementia started showing up.
Jesus, that sucks.
She was officially diagnosed with FTD 4 years later when I was 14, and she died when I was 25. My mom's battle with this disease lasted nearly 15 years, and after experiencing the struggles and hardships of caring for someone with dementia, we decided to start a foundation in her honor. Before this,
everybody's on your side with this. This is the thing. Like, everybody is on your side. We all feel bad that happened. That's horrible that happened to him. That's absolutely terrible, right? I lost my mom semi-recently, so I can totally fucking relate to this. This is really bad, but it doesn't have anything to do with it. Like, I get it. Like, yeah, it sucks, but there it is.
My family have been donating money as well as spending time with my mother academics, and doctors to help them with their own understanding of FTD. My father runs an annual golf tournament, and this golf event hasn't always contained a charitable component, but has always been in dedication to my mother to bring awareness to FTD. I would often be present at these events, but beyond giving an occasional speech, I was not and still am not involved in any of the event planning. In 2018, I took two things I'm passionate about.
The golf thing, that golf event and the money that they made from that, I don't really care about that. Like, that's like $40,000. It had to do with his dad. Like, I don't know, like, what happened with that. I have no idea. Like, what about the $600,000? Like, that's really what we're talking about here. Who gives a fuck about the golf event?
Games and charity work, and started IndieLand to highlight the indie game community and raise money in honor of my mom for a good cause. During several recent IndieLand events, press interviews, and podcasts, I went on record saying where the money was going to and that the Open Hand Foundation had worked with various organizations.
Yeah.
At different points, the foundation had been in communication with or considered several of them, but it was not appropriate for me to make such statements when final actions had not yet been taken. The Open Hand Foundation's goal...
Make such statements when final actions had not been taken. These are two completely ambiguous statements that mean nothing. Why was it not on you to make the statements, and what were the final actions?
Was to make a large impact by donating the money to the right place. And a lot of the conversations that were had with various organizations...
But it wasn't about donating the money to the right place, because you donated the money on the pretense of giving it to a certain place, right? Like, the money was taken, and then they said, we're going to donate the money to this place.
Involved the funds not being restricted or came with extremely high administrative costs. Look, any way you say this, action needed to be taken. And to that point, I'm sorry. I'm disappointed that I was not more straightforward regarding the foundation's timeline for making donations, and that I made statements potentially implying donations were... I'm sorry. I'm disappointed that I was not more straightforward regarding the foundation's timeline for making donations, and that I made statements...
Timeline for making donations.
Statements potentially implying donations were made when they had not yet been. It took too long for clear action to occur.
You're right.
And I apologize for all of this. But such inaction was not done for any selfish or malicious reasons.
I believe you. I believe you. Okay. I totally believe this. I will completely give him this point. I think that I actually don't think that he took the money. And this is why, because this is why I didn't believe, man, it's 10 fucking years. No, I think this is my honest read on the situation. And you can go back to the other videos. I said the same thing. I think that he's just completely mismanaging it. And he's mismanaging it to such a degree that the mismanagement looks like fraud. Because he's doing such a bad job, it might as well be fraud. But I never said that I thought that he was doing it for bad means, because I thought he was raising the money for his mom. It was such a personal thing that I just didn't believe. I would need to have irrefutable evidence that he was actually doing it maliciously. Do you see what I'm saying? Don't believe him. Again, if he didn't get caught, he could make it disappear. Maybe not. But it becomes fraud at a certain point and certain intentions. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that okay, so my point is that his intention, I believe, was never to take the money and run off with the money. I actually don't believe that was ever his intention. I don't think that we have enough evidence to prove that it is. Let's stop right there. Rather than going back, no, I think it wasn't. That's what I think. I don't think that he ever had the intention to take the money and run off with it. But at a certain point, gross negligence is not that much different from fraud. Is it? At a certain point, whenever you do such a bad job at something like this, and this is what I said before, right, with the other video, this is why I said, his credibility is ruined for running this event. You need to, good that you donate the money, you need to just raise money for another charity. Stop trying to make your own charity.
I want to take this opportunity to apologize to any developers, publishers, content creators, and special guests who were involved with the various events. I'm also very sorry to this year's IndieLand sponsor. Their team was incredibly supportive and were a great partner to work with. Most importantly, I want to apologize to anyone who ever donated over the years who felt they were wronged or led astray by any of this. Dementia is an incredibly important cause to me and my family and so many of you at home. Advocating for more awareness has been such an important part of keeping my mother's memory alive. As the Open Hand Foundation board is currently restructuring, I am taking this time to step away from my role as a board member. I am no longer a part of the Open Hand Foundation. For the foreseeable...
Probably a good idea. I think that they should dissolve it, but this is fine. All right. Yeah, he shouldn't be involved.
Future, should the event continue, IndieLand will solely be focused on highlighting indie games. There will be no charity component. I love
good decision.
Helping the indie game community and working with developers. And if there are developers out there that want me to play their games, I would be honored to continue to do so. I would now like to take a deeper look and respond to some of the many accusations made.
Here we go.
Much of this is going to be dry and complicated because we're dealing with business finances, tax-exempt nonprofits, the IRS, and legal issues.
Let's hear it.
But serious allegations need a serious and thorough response.
Good. Let's go.
I will also have included links to official government websites, reliable third-party sources, and copies of relevant Open Hand Foundation documentation related to all these topics in the description down below. Let's start with the Open Hand Foundation's formation. When my mother passed away in 2013, we donated her brain and spinal cord to the same academics and doctors we worked with to further advance their research.
Yes.
There's a link in the description to her autopsy report.
Which, by the way, wasn't that what I predicted? He meant whenever he said they had been donating to them even before the charity? Isn't that exactly what I predicted? Because that is 100% what I said. Yep.
That confirms her brain and spinal cord were both donated to science. This was an extremely personal decision for us. Because of my family's history, we had considered all legacy efforts that we had personally made to be a part of the Open Hand Foundation's history, which also...
Yeah, and remember I said with this point, I didn't feel like this was a very, very strong point because I thought this is what he had been referring to. Many people, who have like different types of degenerative diseases do something that is incredibly selfless and really good for the medical field in general, is that they're able to donate their body or part of their body to science in order for, scientists and doctors to figure out how to make sure this doesn't happen to people in the future. This is a great thing. It's amazing. And so, there's no negativity with that. That's good. And I thought that was kind of a weak point with the original video anyway, because I thought that's what he was referring to, and it turns out I was right.
Led to its creation.
Now here's another glaring problem.
Okay.
If you go back to any of their filings, for instance, this is from 2016,
right?
You can see that when they check their organizations, they called themselves a Section 501c3 exempt private foundation. The problem with this is, according to the IRS, they actually have two designations, private foundations and public charities. Generally, organizations that are classified as public charities have an active program of fundraising and receive contributions from many sources, including the general public.
In 2014, the Open Hand Foundation was originally registered as a 501c3 private foundation, which under the law is a nonprofit corporation formed to carry out charitable, religious, literary, educational, or scientific purposes that is recognized as tax-exempt. When the foundation realized the limitations placed on the private foundations themselves, they sought out advice of legal and financial counsel and took action to switch to a public charity. In February of 2016, they filed to terminate the foundation's private status. For more information on the difference between private foundations and public charities, and on private foundations terminating...
This is smokescreen. This is a red herring. It doesn't have anything to do with this. Why did the $600 not get donated? Like, what are we talking about this? Like, this is like, you know what this is like? This is like somebody submits like an essay, And it's like the essay is about how you're wrong, and then the person responds back to it and they say, oh, well, you misspelled this word. So this guy's, I mean, like, what are we doing? We're going to listen, we're going to pay attention to this guy. Shut the fuck up, let him finish. It's been 7 minutes.
Their own statuses, I have provided links to the IRS website down below. In March of 2016, the IRS acknowledged the receipt for termination of private status and indicated to the Open Hand Foundation the necessary requirements the foundation must follow in order to comply with the IRS code. A copy of those notices are also down below with supporting IRS documentation.
Okay.
Further, based on the acknowledgement of the private status termination, the foundation was now required to operate like a public charity as described in the IRS code for a period of 60 months.
Okay.
However, the foundation was also instructed to continue to file as if it were a private foundation. Any possible issues pertaining to such filings can only be considered clerical errors and are in no way intended to be misleading, fraudulent, or criminal in any nature. Since that time, the Open Hand Foundation, fraudulent or clerical any possible
then 90 days, your 60-month period, you must show that you met the requirements for charity. 60-month period shall thus be classified under section for all purposes beginning 60 months thereafter. As long as you continue to meet those requirements or set for requirements at the end of 6-month period, you won't be subject to provisions or at section 51C. If you don't meet the requirements, classified as private foundation for the entire period. You'll be liable for interest. Okay.
Issues pertaining to such filings can only be considered clerical errors and are in no way intended to be misleading, fraudulent, or criminal in any nature. Since that time, the Open Hand Foundation has been compliant in operating as a public charity, and as such, the status is directly reflected on the IRS's own website. I'll link to you where you can search for yourself to see the foundation currently has a public charity status.
I never really had like a strong opinion that they were lying to the IRS. Maybe they were, right? But like this was really not the main point. The main point was to see if the money was actually still in the bank account, if it had been spent or not. You know?
Crimes, especially fraud, go undetected. And unless you do something especially egregious on your filings, nothing will be flagged to the IRS. In saying that, however, these filings don't seem to be done properly, and they aren't even signed, which is definitely a legal requirement.
And again, I said this was just simply because they had a CPA prepare it.
April 2016, after receiving confirmation
like
of the
electronic signatures don't appear on the documents.
Status, the IRS had completed a randomized audit on the 2014 tax return and continued to allow the foundation to operate tax exempt, as it found nothing wrong with the foundation's filings. Additionally, the foundation files all their taxes electronically, which does not require a physical signature on the actual forms. Only e-file authorization.
Didn't people have a consideration or a problem with filings that happened in like 2018 or 19 onward and not filings in 2014? I don't think that there was ever a statement or an accusation that the 2014 filings were fraudulent. I don't think anybody ever said that.
Forms that are sent from a certified public accountant for electronic signature. Not only is this legal, but it is the industry standard for filing taxes here in the United States. The audit letter is linked down below. On to donations. There are generally two.
I'm just saying that, like, I don't think that a 2014 audit is evidence against 2019, like an accusation for 2019. Like, I don't, like, because it's like if it was a 2019 audit and the accusation was 2014, I would say maybe it is. So, like, I don't really think that's a good point. It doesn't address what the concern was, really.
Of donations: unrestricted and restricted donations. Most donations are unrestricted in nature. By being unrestricted, donations can go to anything: research, administrative costs, travel expenses, salaries, or bonuses. Doesn't matter. Unrestricted donations come in the form of a donate link on a website, maybe a Twitch stream, or even a telethon. The Open Hand Foundation raised funds in an unrestricted manner with the intention to restrict a larger donation towards dementia research. Larger restricted donations ensure clear measures and direction, but can take time. whereas unrestricted donations are often instantaneous and not tracked. This is one of the big reasons as to why the donation took so long.
I want to listen to that again.
Funds in an unrestricted manner. Unrestricted donations come in the form of a donate link on a website, maybe a Twitch stream, or even a telethon.
A donate link on a website. So, okay, let me just go ahead and step back. Didn't he raise most of the money through donate links? He did. He's saying if you just click donate on a site, you have no say in how the funds are spent. This is a legal argument.
The form of a donate link on a website, maybe a Twitch stream, or even a telethon. The Open Hand Foundation raised funds in an unrestricted manner.
Yes.
With the intention to restrict a larger donation towards...
With the intention to restrict. So that means it didn't get restricted. Because if it got restricted, he would have said with a restricted amount.
Dementia research. Larger restricted donations ensure clear measures and direction, but can take time, whereas unrestricted donations are often instantaneous and not tracked.
So I don't understand the logic with this. So if the unrestricted donations are instantaneous and not tracked, then why weren't they immediately donated? I don't understand. I don't understand this. Am I stupid? He's saying he got unrestricted donations and turned them into restricted? No, he didn't turn them into restricted. He said he had the intention to do it, which means that he didn't do it. Do you see how this is extremely confusing? Whenever he creates a distinction between unrestricted and restricted donations, and then he says unrestricted donations were how we got our money, and then we had the intention of restricting it, which implies that it didn't happen, because if it did happen, he would have the paperwork for it happening, and he would have provided that. That didn't happen. So I'm assuming it didn't. Maybe I'm wrong, but it sure fucking sounds like he didn't. And the second thing is that if he had it unrestricted money, why did it take 10 years to donate it? Why does it need to be restricted? Why is this important? Because I've donated money before as an unrestricted donation, and it's been totally fine. I was able to write it off my taxes, no problem. So I don't understand what the issue is. Because you wanted to restrict it. Why? I'm not getting this. Unrestricted money, meaning they spend it how they want. Larger restricted donation, meaning a larger donation would give control over how the money was spent. So what you're saying is that he wanted the restricted donation to go to this place explicitly because he didn't want them to spend it on administrative costs? That's bullshit. Then why are you working with them if you don't agree with the way that they handle their administration? There's probably 20 other different charities for dementia. Why are you doing it with the one, charities need money to run. They have to pay people. The unrestricted money, they spend $150K to keep the money in the bank. Yeah, I don't understand this. He's throwing the charity under the bus. He's implying that, so if that's what he's saying, isn't he implying that he doesn't trust the integrity of the charity? Because that's what I'm getting out of this. You're overthinking this. Am I? He wanted specifically dementia research. He said the administration fees were too high.
This is one of the big reasons as to why the donation took so long. The organization did not raise enough money to make the impact that would allow the funds to be restricted and avoid those high admin costs.
The organization did not raise the money. Wait a second. Let me listen to that again.
Reasons as to why the donation took so long. The organization did not raise enough money to make the impact that would allow the funds to be restricted and...
What's the number? How much money need for a restricted charity donation? I'm not seeing any. So he's saying that 600, wait, what the fuck? So you can only make a restricted donation of some insane amount that's over what, $500,000, $400,000? It's usually $100,000. Yeah, it's like $10K. Yeah, I'm looking for information about this. You can restrict $10 if you want to. A lot of charities will just eat up smaller amounts in administrative costs and other fees, like AGDQ's first $1 million. PCF only used about 50,000 of that on actual cancer research. So it took you 10 years to restrict funds? You know what I should do? I should try to donate $500 to charity and restrict it and see how long it takes me. I should try to donate it to the exact same place that he donated it to. Because I guarantee you, it wouldn't take 10 years.
And avoid those high admin costs. Now let me walk you through the finances. Revenue sources for the foundation include direct and indirect public support.
Wait a second, sorry, I wasn't reading
and
chat.
avoid those high admin costs. Now let me walk you through the finances. Revenue sources for the foundation include direct and indirect public support, the golf fundraiser revenue,
Direct and indirect public support. That means donations.
and Indieland revenue. The foundation's expenses include costs for the golf fundraiser
Sure.
and Indieland, operational costs, and various fees, totaling for $178,951.17 worth of expenses over the last 9 years.
Okay.
It's also factually inaccurate that all the money the foundation received in 2023 is unaccounted for. For starters, the Tiltify campaign for Indieland...
Well, I mean, of course it's unaccounted for. The fiscal year hasn't even ended. Of course it's not accounted. Like, who started doing their taxes for 2023 yet? Probably nobody. Like, of course... What's the argument here? Like, Jesus.
And raised just over $64,315.95. After platform and processing fees, we received $61,303.33 from PayPal and Tiltify's credit card processor Stripe. Adding the $15,000 sponsorship donation to the initial estimate income for Indieland 2023 equates to $76,303.33. This does not include merchandise, bits, or subscriptions from Twitch. However, there were real production costs when it comes to running this event.
Nobody is complaining about that. Nobody, listen, I've run charity events before. It costs money. Just because it's charity doesn't make everything free. I get that, and you have to recoup those costs. Nobody is criticizing that. Nobody thinks that, actually, I'm sure people do think. I don't think that he siphoned money. I don't think that he stole the money. Now, it's possible. Sure, it's possible. But I didn't go out on a limb and say that. I never did. So I don't see how this is, and I know obviously this video isn't against me, right? It's against all of the other people, probably primarily Carl and Mudahar, who made the first videos. I just watched them. But the point is that I don't think this was the public concern. It was never the public concern.
We paid for flights, hotels, appearance fees, supplies, food and catering, costs of good for merchandise, etc. All of that totaled just under $12,000. This is still an outstanding invoice, as not everything has been received or paid yet.
Naturally.
Income from Twitch subscriptions and bits, along with merchandise, have offset some of the production costs. So to say the money is missing is simply wrong. Also, to be clear, Indieland does not make money on YouTube. We typically stream only on Twitch. And when we did simulcast to YouTube, we made little to no money. Next, let's talk about the golf tournament.
Well, he could show how much money he made on Twitch, by the way. You just go, there's literally a button that says revenue. You can show the exact amount of money you've made. Remember, like, I'll show you what it looks like. So, like, remember whenever Ninja accidentally leaked his revenue? You can extremely, very easily show exactly how much money you made in the day that it was made, with a breakdown of how the money was generated, whether it's through Prime subs, paid subs, gifted subs, ads, turbo, cheering, hype chat, game sales, bounties, it's got an entire breakdown for this. So you can literally just provide that information if you want to disprove this. Like, it's super fucking easy.
The interesting thing about the money the golf tournament raises is that it seems to disappear. Fans of the completionist who rushed out to defend him tried to claim that because Gerard hadn't spent the money, it wasn't stolen. From 2014 to 2017, filings showed the Open Hand Foundation received...
I agree. It was not stolen. But not being stolen is not the moral benchmark that I would use for a charity. You know? Are you showing Ninja's revenue leaks? Oh, bro, I've made way more than that in a month. It's not even a big deal. Bro, he needs to stream more. Yeah, it's fine.
Between $30,000 to $60,000 per event. This is likely underreported.
In 2019, the foundation reported $123,816 in revenue, but the accusers alleged that $14,000 is unaccounted for. Our books do reconcile, and these accusations are the result of bad math and missing information.
To be fair, you did just say 5 minutes ago that any inaccuracies could be clerical errors, and now you're saying that your books are perfectly accurate. This is not consistent. But okay. I mean, again, like for fraud and stuff like that, I don't think this is really, again, fraud in that regard. I don't think that he was trying to defraud. Mistakes happen. Like, so I owed a lot of money to the IRS from 2018. And we overpaid this year my taxes. We fucked up, and we paid them too much money. And so I was going to get a really big tax return. And the IRS said, you know what? You've owed us money for 5 years. We're taking your fucking tax return, and now you don't owe us money anymore. So they took my fucking money. And, which, to be fair, was originally their money because I fucked up my tax return in, like, I think it was like 2018 or something like that. And, like, that's not fraud. Like, fucking something up, there's, like, such a massive difference legally between intentionally hiding funds and intentionally not reporting things versus fucking up numbers. Everybody fucks up numbers. It happens constantly.
The 2019 Indyland's net proceeds were $82,409.19.
Yeah, knowing an intent,
with
yes.
$31,371.55 in revenue from the golf tournament and $10,000 from a direct supporter, it adds up to $123,780.74.
Okay.
To insinuate that there are further issues with 2020 and 2021 tax returns, people forget that there was a pandemic that shut the world down. The golf events are generally scheduled in the springtime when the weather is good for outdoor events. However, when the foundation had to delay the event, the only available dates weren't until November of 2021. Not only did the foundation take donations and sponsorships that had already been paid for 2020 and roll them towards 2021, but not everyone was comfortable being in public with bigger groups of people.
And this is, again, I said this originally with the video, that I thought that the reason why the funding went down tremendously was because of COVID. I think that was kind of obvious, right?
Participation was drastically down, especially since the pandemic brought on a recession. Finally, pledges and donations are not always...
Well, the reason why the pandemic brought on a recession also brought on the onset of a lot of inflation. And that's why it was important for you to donate the money in a time frame that was not 10 years. Because, so like, and this is really what the problem is. Like, let's look at an inflation calculator. Okay, so let's see here if this is the right one. Okay, so this is from the this is literally a government website, and we're going to take a look at it. And I'm going to assume that the money that they raised was, let's say, $250,000 before, or like, let's say $350,000. Okay, is that it? That's enough zeros? Yeah, it is. Okay. In January, and let's say this is the amount of money that they had by 2016, or let's do 17. It's $100,000 more dollars. So it basically just evaporated $100,000. So I mean, to be fair, it's $93,000, but that's pretty close. So like, that's how corrosive inflation is. And if that money had been spent in 2017, at least some of it could have been engaged at the purchasing power that it had then. Like, that's why this is problematic. And again, like, I don't think that there is any way. I genuinely believe that I do not think that he's malicious. Maybe I'm a fucking idiot. But I don't think that he's malicious. But he sure as fuck should never handle any finances or be responsible for any finances ever again. That's what I think.
Collected at the same time of the event. It might take a few months to receive the funds, often rolling them into the following year's income. As for what the costs are to run an event like this, there are event organizers, venue expenses, crafts and catering, event dinners, support staff, production equipment, rentals, event branded merchandise, security, insurance, and more. Smaller events have smaller costs, and as the foundation scale the events,
the golf event that they did probably cost them $150,000, probably like $100,000 to do. I would say somewhere around there. Like, unless they got a really good deal, like if they went all the way and they did everything, it probably cost them $100,000. Maybe 60. You think so? Maybe it could be 60 since the guy's done it before.
The expenses increase proportionally. There's talk of $125,000 being embezzled for unknown admin purposes. As previously mentioned, we went from a private to public charity, and under both nonprofit structures, we're legally obligated to spend money on expenses. With that said, it is perfectly legal to hold donations, and in fact is not uncommon for organizations to hold their funds.
I'm a computer.
Let's go back and we're going to listen to that again.
For unknown admin purposes. As previously mentioned, we went from a private to public charity, and under both nonprofit structures, we're legally obligated to spend money on expenses.
Are you legally obligated to spend $120,000 on expenses? That's a very large amount of money. I think that making a legal distinction of like allowing it, like I think that he's making like, it's not about whether it was illegal or not.
With that said, it is perfectly legal to hold donations, and in fact is not uncommon for...
For how long, though? Like, I agree with you. You're right. That's like saying everybody goes over the speed limit, so it's okay for me to drive 200 miles an hour. It's the degree that's the problem. If he held the donations for 3 years, people would have been like, idiot, and then be like, donate the money faster next time. If he held the money for a year, people would be like, okay, and everybody would have bought this. No, if he had held the money for 2 years, I believe everybody, if it had come out, they would have been like, well, it's business, like, who knows, right? But 10 years. And how is it that it was such a problem to donate this money, but then the moment that you get called out, the money gets donated within a month? Because if this was an ongoing process, wouldn't it logically, like, what do you think? What are the odds that this was just discovered right at the very end of the process? What is this?
Organizations to hold their funds.
I'm a computer scientist, so I really, really urge anybody that has background in tax accounting for charitable organizations, or hell, if the IRS is watching this, one of the things that Carl brought up to me very, very recently was the 5% rule, which again, this is a very complicated rule, but the idea is the U.S. government expects foundations to use their assets to benefit society, and they enforce it through Section 4942 of the Internal Revenue Code, which requires private foundations to distribute 5% of the market value, the fair market value of their endowment each year for charitable purposes. So again, I want to see how this rule is done, because according to the filings we've seen, they haven't actually given any money. They've spent money in operating expenses, but again, we need to actually see if they're giving their money to a charitable organization.
Referencing that same rule mentioned in this claim, the foundation is actually not legally required to distribute a minimum of 5% a year in charitable donations, because once again, the Open Hand Foundation is a public charity. This means that the $600,000 that was donated...
So because it's a public charity, it's not required? Okay.
5% a year in charitable donations, because once again, the Open Hand Foundation is a public charity. This means that the $600,000 that...
So he said the charity... Let me make sure that I'm understanding this. So if we have a timeline here, and this is 2014... and this is 2023, And this is the timeline. And then there's an inner timeline here of the 60 months. 60 months. And this, and the red is public. Isn't this what he said? So he got the money in 2014, converted it to public in 2016. It's public now. In 2018, they started filing private again. Yeah, that's what my understanding was.
And a lot of the conversations that were had with various organizations involved the funds not
and public charities. Generally
reliable third-party sources and copies of relevant Open Hand Foundation documents. Because
where was the part where he was talking about his charity being public or private with the IRS emails?
Further, based on the acknowledgement of the private status termination, the foundation was now required to operate.
The 60-month period ends
like a public charity as described.
Okay, here we go. Let's listen to it again.
The necessary receipt for termination of private status and indicated and took action to switch to a public charity. In February of 2016, they filed to terminate the foundation's private status. For more information...
So then the 5% rule should have been applied in 2014, 15, and potentially 16.
On the difference between private foundations and public charities, and on private foundations terminating their own statuses, I have provided links to the IRS website down below. In March of 2016, the IRS acknowledged the receipt for termination of private status and indicated to the Open Hand Foundation the necessary requirements the foundation must follow in order to comply with the IRS code. A copy of those notices are also down below with supporting IRS documentation.
Okay.
Further, based on the acknowledgement of the private status termination,
the acknowledgement of the private, okay.
The foundation was now required to operate like a public charity as described in the IRS code for a period of 60 months.
And then what?
However, the foundation was also instructed to continue to file as if it were a private foundation. Any possible issues pertaining to such filing?
After the end of your 60-month period, you must show that you've met the requirements as a public charity. If you show this, you'll be classified under that section for all purposes from the beginning of the 60-month period and thereafter. So it stays public. So you had to spend 5% each year, but they spent 0% for several years? Yes, so it's public. Okay. Because you can see how this is extremely confusing. Because it's like, oh, we're a public company or a public charity, but we're filing privately. Okay.
Issues pertaining to such filings can only be considered clerical errors and are in no way intended to be misleading, fraudulent, or criminal in any nature.
And it ends in 2020. Well, I think the ending, so I see that, right? But after this 60-month period ends, I don't think that they go back to a private charity. And that's what I thought happened. So I was wrong about that. So, yeah, no, this is not true. Because that's what I thought, too. Yeah, they stay public. It says for the 60-month period, during beginning of the 60-month period and thereafter.
Charitable donations, because once again, the Open Hand Foundation is a public charity.
Yes, it is.
This means that the $600,000 that was donated did not incur any fees or is not subject to any tax penalties.
This is also not a good argument at all. He's making a legal argument for a moral wrong. Nobody here, the reason why people wanted this guy to get audited is because nobody knew what the fuck was going on. Because how would anybody know any of this stuff, especially whenever there's never any documentation of it? And I said that, I think that they should, I hope he doesn't get in trouble for it. I never said that. So it's of course people are going to think that. So you can't make an illegal...
To insinuate that the money was missing and that the penalties were to be applied and that my family or myself had to float the missing funds is just not true. Also, none of the money from the Open Hand Foundation has ever funded any of my projects for my company. I want to stress that not a dollar raised from Indieland and its supporters was ever used on anything to personally benefit me, my family, or any of our companies. We never touched this money nor ever moved it. As evidence in the public documents, no one at the foundation has ever drawn a salary. Saying that we are frauds...
Okay, totally fine. Totally acceptable. I believe you. Yeah, okay. The charity definitely benefited his image. It did. He's right about that.
That what we are doing is illegal and constitutes charity fraud, that we are using my dead...
What is charity fraud? Let's look it up. Let's go ahead and just take a look at this. 5 steps to informed giving, FTC charity fraud. Okay, we're going to look at this. I'm trying to find out if there's any distinctions of what charity fraud is, because I'm not sure if I can find an instance of a person taking the money and then not spending it. Because usually most charity fraud cases are people that take the money and then spend it on themselves.
Other's name to potentially embezzle money and steal is categorically false. I should have been more transparent about the money not being donated, and that's on me. But my family and I have not done anything illegal. Not before then, and not since.
Okay, wow. It's not illegal. Okay.
And as mentioned previously, we have correspondence from the IRS to prove that. Furthermore, my family and I are in serious conversations with our legal teams regarding next steps, as the allegations that have been made with complete disregard for the truth of the matter. These allegations were made by individuals who self-admittedly aren't even financial or legal professionals. These allegations...
Okay, so you're going to try to, sue these people for calling you out. I mean, yeah, sure. You go and sue Mudahar and Carl. Go get mad at them because they called you out for holding $600,000, and your only argument is that, oh, well, it was legal for me to do it. Here, let me go ahead and let's make a little chart here, okay? So this is a chart, and we're going to do it just as a little visual aid for everybody who doesn't really understand this. Okay, so at a certain point, fraud is a baseline, isn't it? This is fraud, okay? And then we have incompetence and mismanagement. And at a certain point, it reaches this, which is called gross incompetence, at which point you are liable. My opinion, and I think that functionally defrauding people and being this grossly incompetent are the same thing, because people are donating money and the money isn't going to where they think it's going. And a reasonable person would assume that within at least probably a 3 to 5 year window, their money would arrive at the charity that it was intended to go to. You see what I'm saying? I think that any reasonable person would see this. And there are very, very large scale, gross incompetence. This is, for example, I'll give you an example of gross incompetence, just so people know kind of what this is. So there was a girl, and this was at TwitchCon, and she jumped into a ball pit, and the ball pit was 2 inches deep, and then the bottom of it was concrete. So she broke her back. She literally broke her back, had to walk with a fucking I don't know, like a thing on her back. It was awful, right? Completely fucked up her life. Probably in 50 years from now, if she's still around, she will still be suffering from the consequences of that. And people said, well, she signed a release form. She signed a release waiver. No, because if you are so incompetent that you're not even maintaining the basic level of quality, you can still be held liable. And in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of almost any fucking jury, this falls under that. Especially because he's using these words, and if you look at the words and the language that he used in the clips for Indieland, and whenever he was talking about the charities, he said, I'm pretty sure he used donated. Donated is past tense. That means donated refers to an event that has already happened. What the fuck? You said you donated the money. You didn't donate the money. How's that not fraud? He should have said pledged. Yeah, he should have. 10% Carl's fault, 10% Mudahar's fault, 70% complete, 80% completionist fault. Yeah, true. Like, oh man. The final point is, although they explained a bunch of problems, there still wasn't a fair justification for the 10-year delay. Yes.
Allegations are slanderous.
I'm gonna go back over
the
here.
Truth of the matter. These allegations were made by individuals who self-admittedly aren't even financial or legal professionals. These allegations are...
I think actually that kind of hurts his argument. Because if they were financial or legal professionals, they would have had the understanding to be able to evaluate whether it was true or not. And part of defamation is if you know what you're saying is a lie. This actually hurts his argument, but okay.
Slanderous, and we believe we're done with selfish intent. They have directly jeopardized the safety of me.
It was selfish intent. I'm going to explain why. Because the charities benefited your image. And you raised money for the charities knowingly, with knowing that you had not donated any of the previous money. So you got a PR boost from this, but the people didn't get the money. And again, whenever you adjust for inflation, the money, assuming that he had $350,000 in 2017, like you're talking about like if you look at this here, right? $443,000. So you're talking about like, what's the difference between that? 90,000, 350,000, it's about 20%, right? So you're talking about like a 20% reduction in purchasing power between whenever you had received the donations and whenever you hadn't. So even if this number is inaccurate, you're still taking whatever number was accurate and you're cutting it in half. Or sorry, you're cutting it into like, you're cutting a quarter out of it. He's saying his accusers had selfish intent. Let me listen to it again.
Financial or legal professionals. These allegations are slanderous, and we believe we're done with selfish intent. They have directly jeopardized the safety of me, my staff, and my family, and that is not okay. I want to reiterate...
They've directly, the staff of your family, like, the only point that I think that he has with this that's valid is the fact that in one of the videos, the address of the charity was provided. And YouTube generally has a policy of not showing that kind of stuff. And that could be seen as a mistake. Like, that it's public information. Yeah, but everybody's house is public information. Like, if you say, oh, that's public information, well, then doxing is okay. But it's not okay. You see what I'm saying? Because, like, all of that stuff is, like, it's bad argument. And so my point is that that's the only point there that I think actually has any validity in it.
Reiterate and specifically address that both the foundation and I have been accused of forgery, embezzlement, and charity fraud.
Forgery. I'm not sure about forgery. Embezzlement. Again, we don't know. That's why I wanted the audit to happen. Charity fraud. I don't know. I mean, like, again, there's like two separate things that are happening. Like, in my opinion, I think that if he said donated in the past tense, in referring to the money that was spent and sent to the from the Open Hand Foundation to these Alzheimer's places, like if he ever said donated, then it's fraud because it's a lie. It was never donated. He said he pretty sure it said will be donated. And that's the thing, is I'd have to go back and listen to every single thing. Well, it's called out for following the money. Yeah, he named the charities he had worked with. He named the charities that he had worked with.
The allegations imply the foundation forged tax returns because they weren't physical signatures on them when we e-filed them.
Yeah. I was right about that too, by the way. Anybody who's filed a tax return electronically knows that.
To hide income or expenses. We can account for every single dollar received and spent in the last 9 years. We do not have anything to hide. And due to the overwhelming amount of people who have been instructed to file complaints to the IRS and Department of Justice, we understand an audit may be coming and we welcome it. Our legal and financial teams have assured us that we have done nothing criminally wrong or illegal.
Good. Good. That's a good thing. I'm glad. Great.
Possible issues in our paperwork can only be described as clerical errors and are easily amendable.
Sure.
Content creators and influencers should be held accountable when faced with serious allegations. However, the narrative can get taken so far away from the truth that the court of public opinion supersedes fact. I recognize...
See, this is like, he's arguing two different things. So, like, number one, he's arguing, did we legally commit fraud? I don't know the answer to that. He thinks the answer is no, and his legal team says the answer is no. But I bet if you asked 100 people if holding on to money for charity for 10 years without donating it, and then donating it less than a month after you get called out for it is fraud, I bet you get 100 people saying it's fucking fraud. So I don't really give a fuck about the legal definition of fraud. That's not the point. It was clearly misleading. You clearly mismanaged the funds. And if we refer back to the chart that I made just a little bit ago, at a certain point, incompetence and fraud look like the exact same thing. And the reality is, after 10 years, you passed that point years ago. That's what I think. If he's tried before jury, it's fraud. I don't want him to go to jail. I don't think that what he did, like, I don't want him to go to jail. I don't think this is a good idea. I just want him to not raise money or be in charge of a charity ever again, because he clearly can't do it. I do. I don't want to spend my tax money on putting this guy in jail for what? Just stop raising money for charity. You can't handle it. You can't manage it.
Recognize and take accountability for all of my opinion. However, the narrative can get taken so far away from the truth that the court of public opinion...
The narrative was that you took the money and you didn't donate it. Like, all of these other, like, fraud, tax return things, these are all fine prints. Here, let me make I'll do another chart, okay? Took money for 10 years and didn't donate the money. Okay? So, we're going to make this 72-point font. All right, so this is it, and then now we're going to look at the other problems, okay? This is where we're at. Do you agree with this? Do you guys agree with this point that I'm making? Yes.
Supersedes fact. I recognize and take accountability for all of my actions. At the same time, I am not going to let my reputation be compromised by allegations that are not true. I own up to my part in this, but I will not be painted as someone who is a con artist and embezzler. I won't be...
Whoa, you are misleading people. Like, are you a con artist? I mean, are you an embezzler? Like, I don't think he's an embezzler. Maybe, maybe not. That's for the IRS to decide. That's why people wanted the... You have to understand that I don't think anybody was making the assertion that you were an embezzler. Because if they were making that assertion, they wouldn't be asking for the audit. Because the reason why people wanted the audit was to find out if what they thought was true, to find out if you were embezzling. The implication behind asking for an audit is the fact that people don't know. Which is extremely fucking fair. 10 years? You think it's unreasonable for people to want an audit? A fucking charity? $600,000 sitting in an account? Getting fucking eaten alive by interest? Just get the audit to clear your name. There actually are a lot of accounting firms that do auditing services for companies. It's actually extremely common. Like, a lot of really big companies pay accounting firms to audit them to make sure that they don't have problems with the IRS. It's extremely common. Did I say something? I meant inflation. Did I say something else? Yeah, inflation.
Someone whose name gets tarnished without putting up a fight. I owe it to my friends, my family, and myself to stand up to this situation right now.
Is that it? That's the end of the video?
I want to leave you all with how the Open Hand Foundation got its name. My mom always had this saying that she and my dad would share with each other. An open hand is always full, meaning the more you give, the more you will receive.
Well, it is always full. That's because your bank, just like the bank account for the charity. What is this? Why are we doing this? Like, what is this? Like, it's so stupid.
This has been imbued in my entire life and how I've lived. And if you followed my journey, you would know that's all I ever tried to do for my friends, my family, and my community. All I ever wanted to do was to share my legacy and give. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you all very soon.
Okay. Yeah, I think that overall, I think this guy spent like about 15 minutes out of this 19-minute video arguing against points that don't really matter a whole lot, and nobody, including himself, has the authority to make decisions on, such as things like, is there fraud? Is there embezzlement? What is charity fraud? He doesn't understand that entirely. I don't understand it entirely. Of course we don't, because we're not fraud lawyers. Like, people spend 30 years learning about this, and they still don't know everything about it. The law is extremely complex. So, again, this is probably the biggest point that I'm going to make about this, is that this is the problem. And so whenever he goes and he does this, actually, we didn't talk about that one, but I think that one's okay too. He does this. Well, what about this? Why did this happen? That's the concern. Spent all day, all video yelling at me, don't care about charity anymore, it's plight, people it represents, to be ashamed of him. I don't know about that. Keep in mind, he's having to respond to multiple videos saying a lot of shit. But it doesn't matter. None of these other things matter. This is the problem with the video, is that the video is built around refuting these arguments from a legal perspective. But the legal perspective is not known. That's why people were asking for the audit, because if people knew what the legal perspective was, then they wouldn't need the audit because they would know it was fraud. They were asking for the audit because it looked like fraud. And again, at a certain fucking point, incompetence and mismanagement becomes fraud, and you can be liable for that. Is this something that's happening in this specific circumstance? I don't know that. I'm not a fucking lawyer. I have no idea. But one thing I do think is true is that taking this money year after year for 10 years and not disclosing that none of the money has been donated, saying that you've worked with these charities before, implying that you've donated the money, and I don't know if he's ever used donated as a past tense verb or not. Or, as a past tense verb or not. But I bet he probably has. I'm not going to go out on a limb. I'm not going to say this happened for sure, but I'm sure he's probably said something like that. That is a past tense that implies an action was taken. And an action was not taken. And the only reason it probably was taken was whenever this stuff was made public. What do you think the odds are that out of this entire 10-year lifespan of this issue, that it just happened to resolve itself within 2 weeks of videos being made calling it out? Get the fuck out of here. He clearly donated the money because he got called out. And that's fine. I'm glad. W for donating the money. I'm glad you didn't spend it. That's great. But stop trying to fucking stand here and moralize like you're the victim. You massively fucked up. And it doesn't matter about like, oh, but there's not a signature on the... If there wasn't a signature, the IRS would have sent it back. It doesn't matter. It's a completely irrelevant point. It's not fine. Listen, what I'm saying is that there is a spectrum of things being bad and good. And this is definitely not good. You're right. It's probably not. But it's not good, but it's fine. Okay, like at least the money, at the end of the day, guys, the money goes to the people that it should have been going to. This isn't the best ending, but it's at least a good ending. The money goes to those people, even though it got fucked up by inflation. It's the next best thing. I try to be an optimist with this kind of stuff, and I'm glad that he did it. I'll read a few comments. Are there any badges of frauds? Is it willful, intentional? Did he know it was wrong and do it anyways? Well, he knew that the money wasn't donated. I mean, guaranteed he knew that. If the plan was to embezzle, what kind of sense would it make to keep it all for plausible deniability until he was ready to siphon it all once it got big enough to cut and run? Usually that doesn't work unless you completely relocate to another country. That should be blacklisted from making charity events. We should be blacklisted from running charity events. 600K gives a lot of interest. What happens with that? So what's the average interest rate that you get? Like, how much money have you guys made on investments this year? Let's look at past 5 years. How much money have you made on your investments? 7%? Okay, let's say 7%, right? So what's 5% of $600,000? Well, it's $30,000, right? So $30,000 times 5 is $150,000. So he could have been donating theoretically now up to like $750,000, right? So yeah, compound it. Yeah, you're also like talking compounding interest. So like we're really thinking like 180, right? 190, something like that. And also like but we are compounding it as if the 600,000 started in 2014, which is not really true. So like again, it probably would be somewhere around the $100,000. If I were to put a number on this, I think that he devalued the worth and the purchasing power of the donations that he had by about $100,000. Somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000, he devalued it by mismanaging it due to erosion through inflation. And that is mismanagement. I don't care if it's fraud or not, it's irrelevant. Read his comment section. As a public accountant, that's like being work at Saturday. At least I'm not on hold with the IRS. You can't 100% be a YouTuber without making an apology video. Yeah, I'm confused. So it took a long time to find the right place to donate due to issues and admin costs, but somehow the allegations came out and you were quickly able to donate it. Seems fishy. But Gerard's lawyers didn't think they'd be writing a script for a YouTube video. The whole fiasco has been an absolute mess. Not only are defamation lawsuits really difficult to win, you have to prove that what they said is not true, that they did it knowingly. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. I don't think that he has a defamation lawsuit on his hands. I really just don't think so because, again, like going back, I don't remember hearing, at least in Carl's videos, of him directly saying that this was fraud. Now, maybe he did. Maybe he was referring to fraud in a general sense, like being defrauded. Because there's like fraud in a legal sense, and then there's fraud in just the general understanding of the word in the English language. So yeah, Mudahar, I think with Harda, yeah, his videos were way longer. Gerard took his time and got with the lawyers. Smartest thing he could have done here. He should have. No, it's not. So he got with his lawyers. Wait, didn't Gerard get in a call with Mudahar and Carl? Now, as somebody who's a bit experienced in getting in calls with people that there are big, legal problems with, let me tell you something. The lawyers wouldn't have told him to do that. So, no, I'm not going to give him any points on, he's listening to his lawyers. Well, his lawyers would have told him not to get into call with the two people that are accusing him of this stuff. So don't go and make it like, oh, this is a legal thing. He's doing the right thing legally. He wasn't. That's whenever he got in the call. He should have just made a statement and say, hey, I understand that there are allegations. I'm going to come out and explain it. Just give me some time. This is serious stuff. And, there it is. And I think that if he had come out and said that, everybody would have been like, okay, we're waiting. But he didn't do that. I feel like whenever I first saw this video, the first video about this, I tried to give this guy the benefit of the doubt. And everybody at the time was like, let's get your pitchforks out and get mad at this dude. But the truth is that I don't think that he willingly defrauded people with malicious intent. I don't think so. I think that he just colossally mismanaged the entire situation. And whenever it got called out, then he finally solved it. Because I think the truth is that he wasn't making donating the money a priority. That's what the truth is that donating the money was not a priority to him. It's not that he had no intention of donating the money. It's that he just wasn't doing it. So for 10 years, because of course, right? And that's exactly it. And again, like, is that fraud? I think, again, if you asked 100 people, they would say, yeah, kind of, it is fraud, right? I would feel like, actually, here, let me rephrase the question. If you ask somebody, if you donated your money to a charity and then you found out that money wasn't donated until they got called out for not donating the money, would you feel like you got defrauded? You'd get 100 people saying yes. As far as I know, for the charity account, he didn't know all the income from all the charities, so they deduct spends. He said multiple donation streams that they were working with various charities and the money was going to them. He lied 100%. Well, working and going are ongoing. Like, that's vague enough to not really be the case. Yeah, I don't know. There's probably precedents for this in case law. Really? I don't know. I mean, like, if he's suing Carl, like, I'm pretty sure precedent really is about, criminal law primarily and not civil law. So I don't know. 10 years is a long time of procrastinating. Yeah. And again, like I don't want to get, it can be both. Civil has precedent, of course. Yeah, I understand there is precedent for both of them, but I think that like for criminal court, it matters like way more. Yeah, I don't know. 10 years is inexcusable. It's both different standards though. Yeah. Anyway, I was going to go to law school. I didn't. Okay. So I can't debate that. That was just my first, like off the cuff opinion. So yeah, an hour and 30 minutes for this. Yes, this is a big deal. Like, I wanted to watch the whole thing. Yes. I wanted to see this whole thing. I understand people might be annoyed. Oh, you keep pausing. You're fucking right, I paused. Yes, it's a big deal. So, I just hope that, I don't know. Like, I guess, I mean, to be honest, like, the good thing already happened. The money got donated. So, that's it. Yeah, it got donated. He did a long-ass response responding to nothing important. No, again, this is what he did. No, not this one. Where is it? This one here. Yeah, he crossed out all of the things that didn't matter. He argued against everything that people don't really care about. His main object was donating. What was its purpose? I don't know yet. Yeah, and so anyway, that's what I think. I'm really glad he donated the money. I hope that, like... Fuck, I mean, I hope he's able to, I don't know. Like, I don't even know what happens after this, right? It's just like really kind of like, it's kind of like a sad situation, like, because, he like raised this money for his mom, and like, I don't think he's like trying to like use her legacy to like make money. That's like insane, right? That's like ghoulish shit. So it's just a sad, shitty situation. And it all could have been avoided if he had just made it more of a priority.